We're ending the broadcast the way it began 50 years ago tonight, in black and white, on another Labor Day, September 2nd, 1963. On that day, history was about to be made.
Direct from our newsroom in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Nelson Benton in Tuskegee, Alabama, Dan Rather in Plaquemine, Louisiana, Bernard Kalb in Saigon, Peter Kalischer in Tokyo, and Eric Severide in Washington.
Good evening from our CBS newsroom in New York on this, the first broadcast of network television's first daily half-hour news program.
What had been since 1948 a 15-minute broadcast, anchored first by Douglas Edwards and then Walter Cronkite, doubled to 30 minutes overnight.
Alabama's Governor George Wallace set the stage today for another federal-state showdown on school integration.
A half hour may not seem like such a big deal in this era of 24-hour cable news, but in 1963 it revolutionized journalism. It was heralded in the press and even got the attention of the president, who gave Cronkite an exclusive interview for the debut broadcast.
At his summer White House in Hyannisport on Massachusetts Cape Cod, President Kennedy today talked with this reporter of many things,
including Vietnam. Kennedy's comments in the interview set off a debate that continues today about what he would have done about the war if he had lived.
In the final analysis, it's their war. They're the ones who have to win it or lose it. We can help them. We can give them equipment. We can send our men out there as advisors, but they have to win it, the people of Vietnam, against the communists.
Now, here's what happened right after the interview.
Does that do all right from your standpoint?
Yeah, that was fine. Maybe just a little longer, the answer, than... So I don't mind if they decide to edit any of this stuff.
Yeah.
He didn't mind, but his press secretary did. At the studio, the post-broadcast celebrations were interrupted by a phone call from press secretary Pierre Salinger. He didn't like the way the interview was edited.
That's right.
That first night, producer Sandy Sokolow was in the control room, which back then was in Grand Central Terminal.
He accused Cronkite and the rest of us of distorting what the president said, of misleading the American people by faulty editing, which if you look at the transcripts and you look at the cut, it just doesn't hold water.
Well, this is what connected Walter's studio from the CBS newsroom.
Yes.
In the days of the 15-minute broadcast, Cronkite and his staff would have to make a mad dash just before airtime from the newsroom on one side of Grand Central to the studio on the other. Eric Shapiro, who is the director of the Evening News today, was just starting his career at the network back then.
This was a shortcut. They would just run as fast as they could across here.
Running through this catwalk.
Running through the catwalk, exactly.
Imagine running the scripts through here, making sure they got into Walter's hands before 6:30.
That's right.
That wouldn't do for the half-hour broadcast.
What scripts have we got in so far, Ben?
So the newsroom became the studio, with Walter surrounded by wire machines clanking and clattering. The expanded newscast that came out of that newsroom would help change the world. Historian Douglas Brinkley.
It's one thing to say there was the police and African Americans had a clash in Birmingham. It's another thing to see the barking dogs and a fire hose. It's one thing to say they were using napalm in Vietnam, and it's another thing to actually see napalm.
In 1963, Marvin Kalb was on the diplomatic beat for CBS News. He told us the expansion to half an hour was liberating.
It opened the door for many of the reporters who had never been seen before to show their stuff. And night after night, Walter was able to introduce reporters from all over the world.
And that's the way it is, Monday, September the 2nd, 1963.
Just 81 days after that sign-off. 81 days after that interview with President Kennedy, the broadcast of November 22nd opened this way.
John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated today in the 46th year of his life and his third year as President of the United States.
That half hour was part of 4 days of unprecedented live coverage that saw television news come of age. More Americans were now getting their news from TV than newspapers. The expansion of the broadcast to 30 minutes had come just in time for some of the most momentous stories in the nation's history. The marches for civil rights, boots on the ground in Vietnam, the first steps on the moon.
Direct from our newsroom in New York, This has been the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
And that's the CBS Evening News then and now. For all of us at CBS News all around the world, good night.